And welcome to the Grindhouse. I know we're like 12 minutes early, but earlier the better. People get to sleep and all that fun stuff. So I'm JC. I am your host, and I'm here with Mike, Bryce, and Gwen. Terry is off being a cat activist tonight, so we definitely wish him luck. And we will see him. We will definitely see him next week. Just a couple of notes because I waited to the last minute last time to show it, but obviously, yes, we do have a Patreon. We do appreciate your support. We actually have a new supporter, Greg K, who has helped to get Steam, whatever this thing is called, Streamyard, running for another month. So thank you, Greg. You are obviously watching us on YouTube. Well, I shouldn't say obvious because I think a few people actually do watch on that other thing, Twitch. There we go. I don't know why I keep doing it, but yeah, Facebook, it exists. And if you want to buy our cool stuff, like get t-shirts, bras, G-strings, panties, whatever with our logo on it, rock on, you can definitely do that there or not, because I don't know. It was fun during the pandemic. Actually, I had a bunch of masks. I don't know if I still have one. So yeah, I was sporting show us your crits masks during the pandemic. Yeah, so and you can still buy them now for like knocking over 7-Elevens in California or something. Just you should probably get a show us your crit hoodie to go along with it, because isn't that hilarious? Every time I look on Twitter and see a robbery in San Francisco, it's always someone with a hoodie, a coat, well, a mask, and wearing sunglasses. Sometimes they wear gloves. Sometimes they wear gardening gloves, which is really weird. It's kind of like, I don't know, gardening gloves aren't really a thievy sort of glove, but but maybe they stole the gloves out of the aisle.
They're not a cyberpunk option.
Yeah, there's definitely none. Oh, I hear a kitty cat. Wow.
Oh, that'd be mine being angry.
All right, see, we have a cat, even though Terry's not here. Oh, Terry's home. Send him a link.
Yeah, he's hiding in the chat.
Oh.
So should we okay, let's see. I was gonna say, should we invite Terry after? I'd like to actually hear what happened with the cats though too. So, and of course we invite Terry. All right, so
all right, send Terry a link.
Yeah, sending Terry a link. Paste. Go.
Well,
all right.
If he's home, then that means things either went really well or they went really poorly. So
yeah, actually, I'd like to hear what happened before I go on my damn you WotC rant.
What?
There he is.
I'm on his needy.
All right. Hey, Terry.
Hey there.
So, how did it go? Like, were you awesome and strong and flipped over tables and tore off your shirt and like punched people? Like, what went on?
That's true. I stood up and I said Hulk smash and started flipping things around, and things happened.
All right. Well, hopefully for the positive.
Yeah, that's good. Now they're just killing all the cats,
Yeah, let's hope that that's not where they go on this. No, it sounds like the city is hearing some of the outcry and making a course correction, but we'll see. We'll see. I'll be going to their monthly meetings to keep an eye on things.
All right.
Just walk into the meeting, you're just like,
that's exactly
no emotion. All right. So I actually am going to run 2 bumpers for this one because this is definitely a 2 bumper topic, and I'll get my yelling and screaming out of the way. So anyway, first bumper. And second bumper.
This serious? You don't know. Everybody knows you never go full retard.
No, this is beyond full retard. We don't even know. Is there higher level than full on this one? Like complete
double retard.
Oh, there we go.
We get demonetized.
Yeah, exactly. We're only using the R word because the movie made us. All right. So we've talked about this 2 weeks ago about safety tools. So I'm not going to go again and go, oh, the X card, or oh, the flower, oh, whatever, give each other hugs before the game, whatever. However, Wizards of the Coast is finally, to me, kind of went full
Authoritarian?
Thank you. Authoritarian. That's the word.
There we go.
Yeah, I can't even say it, but I said it now. On this one. So let's go back a couple of years and go to their Ravenloft book that they published. So the Ravenloft book opens with 2 pages of telling you why you shouldn't make horror scary. Like it opens with that. Like, oh, don't make horror scary because people might be traumatized by your scary game. And it's kind of like, what the hell? It's Ravenloft. That's kind of like saying, oh, go to the comedy club, but don't be funny. Don't be funny at all, because, comedy shouldn't have fun. I'm sure these people that they're on that board, that train as well. So anyway, I'm going to share my screen and show you what WotC has put into their, I think it's called Beneath Phandelver. And then I will explain. So let me go to present, share screen. Do that.
Exactly, Matt.
Whoa.
All right. So here we go. So in the game, there is a chance that your character might be turned into a mind flayer. All right, because it's just, as usual, it is something that happens within a freaking game, right? It's something that could happen in any game. It's people die, people get turned into mind flayers, they get polymorphed into mice and stepped on. I mean, shit like that happens because if there's no risk, there's no reward, and if there's no consequences, why are you even playing a game? All right. And I also want to thank a couple of people on this one. First of all, Craft Matt, who is one of one of the people I follow on Twitter. I was about to say YouTube, but Twitter, who actually brought up some very good arguments on this. And also to Huskarl, who is also another Twitter user. Him and I usually have opposing thoughts on that, just because he's a little bit more far left than I am. But it's great because he's actually someone that I can not argue, but discuss and have a decent discussion with, right? And I like that. I just hate it when people are just like, oh, well, you were obviously wrong and I'm obviously right. But definitely check out Matt on Twitter. He definitely speaks some truth. But anyway, the point is that, let's read that right there. Player consent is required. It's not saying player consent is suggested, or talking with your players about this is something you might want to do, or something in more fancier words. Wizards of the Coast is finally just coming out and basically saying you have to do this in this game, right?
I mean, too bad.
I'm sure people are just going to ignore it, but look at that. So it says, before you use the character transformation rules presented in this section, check with each player to determine if they are open to their character experiencing physically transformative effects. A player will not miss game benefits if they choose not to use these rules for their character. So this is basically saying that the game, something happened, the player screwed up, got whatever the bug or whatever it is that turns them into mind flayers. But before they change, you have to say, hey, you're going to change into a monster. Are you okay with that? And if they say no, you don't change them. Like, when did D&D become a bunch of like, I have so many choice words that I'm not going to use right now. But this is
a brave new world we're jumping into, because this means that a player consent is now required if the DM is going to transform my character from an alive character into an unalive character. Because if I hit 0 hit points and I'm dead, I can say I didn't consent to die. We need to bring that on.
but it's baffling that we've actually gone this way in the hobby. And I know that there's a few people I know who just be like, hey, you're being, hey, I recognize, hey, Matt, giving some call outs there, man. Thank you for popping by on this. But it makes no sense, right? And I see this a lot in other games too. So it's just not Wizards of the Coast. I mean, Chaosium is going off the rails too. I mean, a lot of their newer stuff and with Call of Cthulhu is doing the same thing. Maybe not in the same words, requiring you to like tell your characters something bad. So Cthulhu is, a Bayaki is about to launch you into space and kill you. Are you okay with that? Like, what? That's not.
You're about to witness the incomprehensible horror that is Cthulhu, and that will result in your entire being ceasing to exist. Are you okay with that?
What if that was reality? Like the Grim Reaper just kept coming to us going, it's your time to die. Are you okay with that? Nah, no, I'm not ready to die yet. All right, everybody be fucking immortal. It's just, exactly. The PC consents when they put hit points on the character sheet.
My impression is that this is, and I could be wrong, but my impression is that this is a unfortunate side effect to the lawsuit nation that we've become. That a lot of these games are doing this because they need to have some kind of legal defense saying, look, this guy freaked out because his character did something that he wasn't expected to do, and now he's suing us. Well, we have it right here in the game. It says this could happen, and it's not our fault if the GM didn't inform you that this could happen. It's between you and the GM, and we're completely out of it. So
I would love to see that court case. Your Honor, I'm suing because I played a D&D game and got really scared, and it made me cry. It's like...
Well, think about it this way. Remember back in the 80s during the height of the satanic panic? When, it almost sounds like they're getting pushback on that level, and they're trying desperately to defend themselves.
There were people that committed suicide when their characters died. I mean, I don't remember, but I do remember there was some cases of people tragically ending their lives over a D&D game, and I could totally see that in today's age, that becoming a lawsuit, that their parents going after the game publisher and saying, my son died because of your game and I'm suing you now.
But see, back in the 80s, it was religious groups and mothers and stuff going after D&D. These are the players doing it. This isn't even like a religious group going, Jesus is angry, Jesus smashed because things are happening. These are the actual players who are being the prudish jerkwads.
Yep. Well, I don't want to be that guy, but you can make an argument of going, this is just as, what the beliefs is just as religious as they would if, like, the back in the 80s, just a different type of, the religion of me.
Yeah, but that wasn't the players, though. And that's what's also kind of baffling. Right?
You make a good point on that point.
It's I'm trying to equate this to something that's not game related, right? So at one point you might have health activists going, McDonald's is really bad for you. The food will make you heavy. The food will kill you ultimately with all the chemicals in it, right? So understood. Activists want to make you eat healthy and not make you eat McDonald's food. But that's like going in and McDonald's saying, hey, don't eat our food because it's horrible for you and you'll die if you eat it. So just don't go.
Then the regulars being like, I'm going to die.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense on a
There's
on a
level of entitlement, though, because I could see the mindset of someone who thinks that, because they're going, well, I'm coming into this game to play an adventure where I am this great, a great hero, and I want to escape all these problems of the world, and suddenly you're turning into a mind flare. That's not what I signed up for. And, I guess it all comes down to communication beforehand of going, well, actually, yes, you are signing up for that, Although it would be interesting to see, to actually take that rule and run it as it is, of going, okay, you don't transform into a mind flayer, you die, or or guess what, you're immortal, but you're mortally wounded, so you can't do anything else for the rest of the game except role playing being wounded.
Yeah. So I put what Matt said. So he says, so when the referee does something to the character, the referee is doing something to the player in their eyes, which is true. A lot of people are playing D&D now as themselves, not particularly as a character. Like, they do these elaborate fantasy backstories. And, as someone, I think it was RPG Pundit, and I will mention his name, although a lot of people will probably, I don't know, take their subscriptions away from me saying it. But actually, I like Pundit, believe it or not. But he also brings up some really valid points about people identifying as their characters, like the Forgotten Realms. I mean, Waterdeep has basically become fantasy Seattle at this point. There's coffee shops. Characters want to become baristas.
Wait a minute. There are people that want to go to Seattle in their own fantasy world?
Yeah.
I don't want to turn it into a generational thing, but my personal observation is it seems like a lot of the younger generation tend to have, not all of them, I will say some of them, tend to have some very narcissistic and egocentric qualities. And those definitely bleed into the characters they play. And I could see how that would become problematic if you decided that this character that they carefully crafted that is an extension of them suddenly turns into a mind flayer, how that might rub them the wrong way.
This might get me in trouble with my friends, but I do remember a moment when I was a teenager and we were playing Shadowrun 4th Edition. And two of my friends got into an in-character fight to the death, and it ended with both characters dying because basically one character had the upper hand, the other character had a dead man switch, they both died, and that was that. And both players were the same age, we're all about the same age, but one player was like, okay, yeah, I'll make a new character, I'm fine with this. And the other player was so upset that he was like, I'm going to quit Shadowrun. Like, I'm not going to play this game anymore. I'm not going to play with you guys anymore. And this has been like when we were playing games since we were 7, and we were now like 15 and 16. And it was like, yeah, I'm not going to play games with you anymore. And it's like, but why? Meanwhile, I'm sitting here being like, you know how many characters that you guys have killed of mine? I died to a crayon to the face, man.
And that's the part where you go, wait, now that you think about it, see ya.
Yeah.
So like I've had characters like the first character that ever died in a campaign was playing the Queen of Spiders module. It was basically in the Fire Giant layer, and it was my fault, absolutely my fault. I was playing a high elf fighter magic user, but my character background was he was a spy, and he was sent there basically to spy on the drow. So instead of just going along with my huge party to stay alive, I decided to sneak off in the middle of the night because I'm a magic user and I can cast invisibility. However, in the old rules, they had magic resistance that was percentage based. So if you're invisible and walked into a drow area and the drow have 80% in magic resistance, if they get anything under an 80, your spell is non-existent. And they captured my character and sacrificed me to lull, right? And honestly, the game master didn't even tell me that until like they found my body like 3 sessions later. He was just he says you're knocked unconscious, and then I was so sure, I was sad. I loved that character, but I moved on. I created a new character, someone just as annoying.
And you live that mantra to today.
Yep. But that's anyway, it just really goes back to players not wanting to hold up their consequences, right? They don't want to face consequences. They want to basically play D&D as if it was them, and work their little job in a little magical coffee shop, and that's not my D&D. My D&D is the ass poor farmer, getting the sword and maybe affording some leather armor, going out there and seeing if he doesn't die in the first couple of levels because he's inexperienced and can't hit the side of a barn with his sword. Like that, to me, 0 to hero. That is fantasy.
So I have a point to make, and I don't know why I was holding up my hand. I guess I was brain farting.
Waiting to be called on, that's how that
goes. My generation. But this reminds me of the Snowflake and Safe Space thing that happened with Marvel.
Oh, yeah.
Where it was like very forced representation. And like, I don't know if people know on this channel, but I'm trans. I'm a trans woman. And I didn't find any connection at all with those characters. It was so forced. And like, when I make a character in like my own D&D stuff and whatever, like they're never trans. I want to get like as far away from myself as possible, aside for like maybe being more goth.
Super goth.
Well, I wonder. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Bryce.
Well, I'm wondering if part of the graybeard league of us that are right here aren't so worried about that, because we started out back when D&D was kind of more had a much stronger war game group. So you really couldn't get that. You knew you were going that sooner or later your number was going to come up, and you couldn't get that close to the character. Yeah. It wasn't until the 90s or two. And trust me, I mean, James knows. I was a working actor for the longest time, so every one of my characters were theatrical. But it's I think it was hard for us to get really invested into this character is going to be around forever. Whereas the newer generation, it's all about your one character. It's not exactly a bad thing, but yeah, that's a pitfall that they're running into, right now.
Yeah, I couldn't even hazard a guess at how many characters I've had die. I can't even hazard a guess. I don't remember my first character that died. I don't remember my last character that died.
I had a bunny who died by getting hit by 3 meteors in hell over the course of like 3 days.
And to Matt's point about activism is that I have no problem with activism if it's within circles that, I mean, my parents were hippies. So, I grew up with like, oh, you can't have guns and you can't, play with guns and blah, 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 And it's really weird, too, because towards the end, my mom kind of started leaning conservative. But her point is that everything that she fought for in the 60s is basically being overturned and reversed as we head into like the late, the 2020s. So, but anyway, enough about my mom. But the thing is like, if you have a group that is really into a certain kind of activism and you want to role play that out in your group, that's absolutely fine. But when you start going on, you start influencing corporations to spread that word and enforce it on other people who may not want to join your jamboree. Oh, absolutely. Activism does have a place, and it's the same thing. So most of my groups, so I game with Terry and Mike, and I've gamed with Bryce before. And, our groups were just mostly about escapism, being really silly, and just having a good time, One of the groups I play with now are all blue collar workers, right? They're, sure, they have some modern sensibilities, but when they game, they just want to live in Greyhawk and go and kill things and whatever. But yeah, if that you want to play Cyberpunk and your goal of Cyberpunk is to basically, I don't know, cyborg rights or whatever. I couldn't think. That's the best thing I could do.
Part of the game design, actually, being a rebel, you know.
Yeah. So
in Chicago and Shadowrun, they have the Ghoul Rights movement, which backfired mildly horribly.
Undead lives matter.
James, I think that the next time we run into the drow, I'm going to go ahead and like glue myself to the floor in protest of human sacrifices and see what happens.
See, the trouble is each one of these suggestions is actually still entertaining and fun, unlike the things that are being presented. I want to see how that works out.
Poorly. I already can see how that's going to work out. Poorly.
It's like, oh, well, all right.
Hands in the cement, you know?
But
so we'll just sacrifice you right here, I guess.
But I don't know. It's weird. I had to get it off my chest because Twitter obviously is not the place. Like I said, you have.
There's a reason I avoid it.
Yeah, you have stand-up people. Like I said, Matt, I always love reading his threads or taking part in those conversations. There's some that just make me cringe, but when I voiced my opinion on Twitter, all I did is immediately got tore down, called pathetic, and get off the cross and all that sort of thing. And it was like, and I didn't even post anything offensive. I was just kind of like, yeah, I don't really see where WotC's coming with this. Why suggest something? Don't require it. And suddenly,
how dare you have an opinion different from mine?
When you go into a group where people have allowed their feelings to become their facts, then any kind of dissent, even the mildest of dissent, cannot be tolerated.
Although, James, you are giving him the greatest gift ever, because these people live on Twitter to crush dissent on that regard. Otherwise, they'll just be sitting there doom scrolling, and it's like, finally, someone that I can battle against.
Yeah. What's that movie quote? Finally, a worthy opponent.
Yeah, but honestly, it's not even battle against. I feel like I'm back in 7th grade being the fat kid being picked on. It's just like...
you need to create an alternate account on there called Trollmaster JC, and you need to just go in there and just say trolly things and just get them all in flames and keep them going.
Or just create an account.
Chad Thundercock.
There you go.
There you go.
Or just create one called the Fat Kid, and then that's the one I'll just let people pick on me on. And so.
Actually, I do have a question, and I don't. This might sound facetious, but I'm actually a little bit curious, because when they put in a huge little disclaimer on there going, this consent is required on that. How can they enforce that? Is that like for cons or something, or you could have rules auditors showing up at your house,
And now you will sign the papers.
No, it's like I said before. My personal feeling is that it's just a buffer, so they can step away and say, hey, you know what? It's in the book. It's up to them whether they're going to follow it or not. But if there's going to be lawsuits, we're not involved, because we told them what they need to do.
All right.
I want to play in that game where they have their mystic baristas in fantasy Seattle, so I can go in there and totally screw up their coffee orders and go ahead and do stuff like that.
With that, I don't know which one it was, but it was one of the ones. I think it was when one of the Gary Cons. I think Gary Con 9 week. But they actually put out a module where there was an honest to goodness coffee house, and there was this sorcerer that made magical coffee, and an actual adventure is that you had to get people's orders right. I am dead serious. This is Dungeons and Dragons.
So, Bryce, I think you'd appreciate this.
Crafty Man is my new hero.
Yeah,
Schlonghammer.
And now we will bring out the Schlongenhammer.
Oh, he says it was Strixhaven, and yes, it is an unofficial adventure. Players were baristas.
I'd play that, but I'm into slice of life stuff, but I also feel like that's not where you'd go to D&D for.
Yeah, exactly.
You make a good point. There's nothing wrong with doing, like you said, a kind of stupid but fun adventure type thing. But boy, when they become the stereotype.
Yeah, I mean, we played Big Eyes Small Mouths a couple of times back when I was living in San Francisco with Mike and Chris, and we did stupid stuff like, I had a character called Sailor Mope, basically a magic girl who was goth,
Oh my God, yes.
who wasn't happy at all and just spread, and they were burning Sailor Mope in effigy, and I just kind of walked up and looked at myself burning in flames, going, "Oh look!"
What a great thing! I see myself being burned in effigy. That's something that you live for.
All right, so I think I've let that go. But anyway, I will say one. As much as I love the first Phandelver module, this kind of turns me off to giving Wizards of the Coast money for that second one, because that is, but I'm going to talk about a game next that I played on Friday with actually Mike and Terry, that it made my little heart go pitter patter, and I want to talk about. So let's go ahead and get our bumper that looks more like an Amsterdam porn ad, but it's all I have. So where did it go? Aha. All right. Yeah, like I said, I have to really update my bumpers. That all just kind of looks like hey,
you need to play that bumper and then come in with like a GIMP mask afterwards.
Yeah. I'll have to go through my drawer of GIMP masks. All right. So anyway, Conan 2D20 system by Modifius. So I brought it up here so I can just kind of screen share it. So I've played Star Trek Adventures, which was an amazing game. I own the Fall. I did the Kickstarter for Fall, and Terry did too. So I'll just go. I did a Kickstarter. Terry and I did Kickstarters. That's, I think, I'll go from now, because we've pretty much done the same Kickstarters. But where is my share?
That's what you think. I do secret Kickstarters on the side.
What? You're cheating on me?
I'm cheating on you.
Oh.
All right. So Conan D20 by Modifius. So anyway, like I said, I played the Star Trek version of their 2D20 system, and I've read through the Fallout one. I own the John Carter one, which, Terry, I need to hook you up with that.
We need to play that. I love John Carter.
So the one thing I have to say when I first played it is I said, wow, this is kind of like Fate. And there's a lot of similarities to Fate in the game. The way it works, as far as like complications, in the sense, like Fate doesn't have momentum, but it does have complications. There is kind of a compel mechanism in the 2D20 system. And there's just a couple of things. I'm not saying that they stole from it, but there's definitely some elements of that game, and that's okay, because it really adds a nice story flow. And usually I'm not one for story games, but this is like, it has that meat and passion of like a very how can I put it, crunchy game, but with a lot of narrative pieces to it. And it's really it's mind-numbingly simple. I mean, what you're doing is you're basically rolling 2d20 initially to roll under a number, and there's other numbers like focuses and stuff that if you roll under that, it gives you more successes. Now, having more successes doesn't particularly make what you do it doesn't make it more awesome, but what it does is it builds up something called momentum, which is a currency. And you either spend momentum as you get it, or you can bank up to 6 points of it. And ultimately, it really leads for a more short of words. That WotC rant kind of tired me out. It definitely promotes teamwork. because ultimately at the end of the game, after we're finished and poor Greg's character like almost I just read Matt said that 2D20 were the same designers that made Fantasy Flight Star Wars. Was Jay Little involved in that? Jay's a good friend. I didn't know if he had worked on that or not. But anyway, you basically want to send in the people to go ahead and build up that momentum. And since initiative works not on like I roll and I have to go in a number, all the players get to go first and they pick who goes next. So realistically, what you want to do is you want to basically do stuff, build up all that momentum, and then give it to like the big axe wielding brute to just basically blow it all on like extra D20s for more successes and beefed up damage or extra attacks or things like that. But it works beautifully, and it's capped at 6 points of momentum as a shared resource. So it's not like, someone goes, I have 30 points of momentum. I'm
unstoppable.
Yeah, I'm going to attack 50 times and then do 80 dice on top of that extra damage. It's capped. Now, so there's momentum. And then on the other side of the fence, just like players gain momentum, GMs gain something called Doom in Conan, which is basically momentum for the Game Master, except I have no cap. And players can actually go, ooh, I really want to do something. I don't have momentum. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you to take more Doom so I can do cool stuff. So the players can actually give me more advantage to doing things, which I found really worked well in like the final boss battles, because the players were actually doing really well. We played the Pit of Cthulhu. It's not pronounced Cthulhu, but it's kind of spelled that way. But at the end, you basically end up fighting this like elder thing and a sorceress, and the players at this point, except for like I said, I feel bad for Greg, because every time he got into combat, he was just getting the floor mopped up with him, while everyone was just running around. But I'm sorry, I'm kind of reading Matt's comments too. Actually, I'd love to read a write-up on momentum and Doom, because a lot of times I'm just sitting there going, am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? And okay, actually, so I'm just going to share this really quick. So Matt says, think of Raiders of the Lost Ark and the Ark chase scene in the middle of the movie, and that gives you an idea how momentum and Doom ebbs and flows. Indiana gains momentum as he's jumping on the truck and building momentum, but the GM then uses Doom when he gets shot in the arm and thrown off the back of the truck. So that's a very good... it's kind of a very good model.
Gosh, now I want to punch Nazis and save archaeological things.
That belongs in a museum.
So I'm not going to go like super deep into it, but I'm going to say one, the writers really gave a lot of respect to the genre and to Robert E. Howard's writings. Modifius lost the license actually earlier this year. So I don't know if any of you basically had jumped on that train of like, you can get all the PDFs for $30, which was an amazing deal. And then if you went on Modifius's website, they were basically practically giving the books away. I mean, some of them were like $2 because they had to clear things, but like the core book was gone, obviously, and the screens and all that. But I ended up getting like the Conan the Pirate and Conan the Thief and a bunch of those, and a couple of adventure modules. But it's worth checking out. I mean, honestly, if you really kind of dig your sword and sorcery and really want a system that it looks complicated on the top level, but honestly, the system purrs. He's talking about cats earlier, but and I don't know, I almost want to kind of do a 2D20 system on one of our game live streams whenever I get back to doing those again. Because long story short, I basically said, I don't want to keep calling all my different streams the same thing. So I bought the domain Infinite Odysseys, and I even had a logo designed and everything. And that was going to be the streaming stuff, but then I stopped doing live RPG streaming. So there's that. But if I do it again, I might do another 220 system. Like I did a live stream of Star Trek Adventures. If you want to climb back through my repertoire, you will actually see one called something of Echoes or something. But Terry was in that one. We also had with us Kelly Fitzpatrick and Derek Tyler Attico, who are both writers from Odysseus and both writers on the Star Trek Adventures RPG. So it was really kind of neat having them in the game, just because A, they probably do the rules better than I did, and B, they're both avid Trek fans. Also, no problem, Matt. Anytime, man. Thank you. But just one more little pitch here is that Derek Tyler Attico actually wrote the autobiography of Benjamin Sisko as an official Star Trek book. He's a huge Deep Space Nine fan and a huge fan of Sisko. So I think it was awesome that he got the opportunity to write Sisko's autobiography. So it's out there on StarTrek.com. I think it officially rolls out sometime in December, but it's something I want to pick up because I'm a big Deep Space Nine fan myself, and Tyler's just an awesome guy. He's joined us for a few other games as well, like Aliens and Star Wars that we did a while back. So anyway, that is it for my ranting. So I am now going to turn it on over to Gwen to talk a little bit about Dark Souls.
So, I'm actually going to talk a little bit about gaming conversions to tabletop games.
All right.
And I've got two kind of examples on like the opposite ends of the spectrum. And one of them is a fan game, and it's called Pokemon Tabletop United. And if you know what that is, you're already knowing exactly where I'm going to go. So Pokemon Tabletop United is, as a groundwork, basically point-for-point conversion of the video games to a tabletop game. It has the exact same stat layout, except it's just divided by 10. It has the same moves. You could seriously just like take something that isn't in the game yet and just easily convert it to the tabletop if it's in the games. Why are you screaming all the time? And then it also has stuff kind of added into it too, because it also takes some inspiration from like the manga and the anime. And so you have like player classes, and there are a bunch of different subcategories of classes, but basically the gist of it is you can pick 4 classes over the course of your trainer's career. And these classes can be like focused on battling as a trainer, battling outside of the gym with like illegal moves. That isn't to say that they're like necessarily evil. It's just that they aren't legal. And then you have like the support classes that are more like, you know, your Pokemon breeder, your cook, that kind of thing. And then you also have your like trainer entering combat kind of thing. Like you have the brawler and the like psychic and stuff like that. And it's a very cool system, but because it goes so hard into being like the video games, but without a program calculating everything, you have to do all of the calculating, and it turns into this nightmare of bookkeeping because you are the computer, and especially for the game master who has to run like trainers and their Pokemon, and like every Pokemon is its own fully fleshed out character sheet that's even more detailed than something from like Pathfinder, and it can turn into a real headache real quick. And on the opposite side of the spectrum is the Dark Souls RPG. And it does a really good job of converting the game from a video game to a tabletop RPG and kind of keeping the spirit, but obviously having to change pretty much all of the mechanics. And the main thing that it does, although I have to mention that it is as a framework, or like as a skeleton, more like, it is based in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. But that's kind of where the similarities end. Like, it uses Advantage a little bit. It uses a D20 system. And that's about it. And from there, its main mechanic is what is called position. And basically, position is like a mix of your health points and also this like pool of resources that you can use to spend on like abilities, spells, getting a bonus on your dice, things like that. And it can be, it's kind of a tug of war, and the way it handles it is a bit interesting because you basically have like a set amount of position when you're starting the game. But when you're in combat, you roll some dice and you add that to your position. And so you kind of have like a bit of leeway, as opposed to like Dark Souls, where you're kind of in that situation of like every hit point matters, every mistake matters. Because of the way position works, you kind of have a bit more leeway, but because position is both your health and your spendable resource, that's like the kind of tug of war that it creates. And it's a very interesting system and very neatly done in a way that kind of keeps the spirit of Dark Souls and like the, the thinking in that mindset of like, do I use this now or do I wait a bit? And it is just a very unique way of converting a tabletop RPG without trying to do it one for one. And I think it really shines because of that.
Okay, actually, Matt had posted here is that I guess in Japan, the Dark Souls RPG was based in Sword World, as we're here in the West, it was 5e based. So,
yeah, I've heard about that. I haven't looked at the Japanese one, as I do not speak Japanese, and I often don't trust Japanese fan translations.
Yeah, actually, I'll have to bring it up. I think it's called gunmetal. But when a friend of mine, when I worked for Electronic Arts, a friend of mine went to Japan and asked me what I wanted. And there was a couple things I won't mention, but one of them was just bring me back an RPG. And he brought me back the gunmetal RPG, which is all in Japanese. The art's beautiful. Like, the only English on it was the title Gunmetal, but I'd never be able to play it ever. But one thing I just wanted to bring up, and I don't want to throw it off topic, but we'll just talk about Dark Souls and conversion RPGs, is you mentioned Pokemon.
Yes.
And so, oh, that's small. Can I? But anyway, what my son, when he was a wee lad, I was very into Pokemon, and Wizards of the Coast came out with this, was the Pokemon Junior Adventure game, which was like a JRPG for Pokemon, and it was interesting. It was kind of broken. I don't even think we had a chance to play it very often, or we tried to play it. We just sat there and went, wow, I don't even know how this works, and we moved on. Because I used to use like GURPS and Savage Worlds and run things like Harry Potter and stuff for him when he was younger, because that was like what he was into. But anyway, Dark Souls. Let me just pop that over here, and then I will present again. Conversions really. So one of the things I'm going to say is that 5e on its own merits as a game system is not bad. I mean, it was actually when Mike Merles decided to design 5e, it was done on the merit of he wanted to bridge the gap between old school players and new school players. And so 5e was designed to kind of give that feeling of both old and new. And honestly, I think he did a really good job. It's just as I think the downfall of 5e to me is after Tasha's. I think like Tasha's was the kiss of death for the system, because that's when because that's when you start seeing the rules change. It's like some of it became really power gamey, and some of it started to leak into what we see now for a lot of 5e content, which But so here's the thing, right? Our new, I don't want to use the word generation because that's not what I'm trying to say, but our new gamers, the ones who were brought in by 5e, the great gateway drug, are almost like 5e worshippers. Like they refuse to play other games, or they refuse to admit that other games actually exist. And it's really sad because they try to pigeonhole everything into D&D 5e, and then
guys, what if I made Cyberpunk in 5e? And it's like, what if you just played Cyberpunk?
Yeah, I will have to admit that Carbon 29 something. We actually Mike and myself and a bunch of other players. We actually did a whole series of live streams on that game. It wasn't bad. I mean, it also really wasn't truly Cyberpunk, but it worked in a way. It was done by like Dragon Turtle Games in the UK, who suddenly just disappeared off the face of the earth. But they weren't bad. But you get a lot of 5e stuff that was just, oh my God. Terry, what was that space game we played that was freaking horrible?
I don't remember. Maybe my mind has blanked it.
Esper Genesis.
Esper Genesis. Did we ever play Esper Genesis? I don't know.
We did. We did play Esper Genesis. See, that's how forgettable it was.
I have totally forgotten it. I don't remember.
We played 2 sessions of Esper Genesis, and it was forgettable. I
remember seeing someone try to convert Pokemon to 5e, and that was hard to read.
I'm actually, I shouldn't be looking at my bookshelves, because actually what I did earlier this year is I took all my 5e books and I placed them in I placed them on a separate shelf in the guest bedroom, so I didn't even have to look at them or have them take up space on my shelf.
They're the guest books.
Yeah, exactly. Guests want to play an RPG, you can go ahead and play 5e. Monkey Man, thank you for joining us. We're people, definitely. We're types of people for sure. That changes from week to week, especially when I go on my hey, do they still publish rated X materials? That was fun. That was last week's show, by the way. So anyway, so if you want to see the copy of the original Edward Penis Hands, last week's show is I know Bryce is like, I just want to forget that I was on that show. But then there are some good like 5e. So there's one they just released that actually you can get source books like The Crow and Escape from New York, and I think it's called Everyday Heroes, where they basically did D20 Modern, but they did a 5e version of it, and it looks really good. I haven't played it, so I can't really speak to how it plays, but yeah, my rule of thumb is if there's a world that you want to play and there's no RPG for it, go ahead and get Savage Worlds. Pick up GURPS. Pick up, there's 100 Fate, whatever. There's 100 generic RPGs out. Risis. If you want something really simple, and just put your flair into that. Don't. I'm just looking at Matt's comments here. I can't even pronounce that. Brancalonia. Here, I'll put it up on here. I've heard of that one though. It's I think it's a Spanish game, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it's based in Spain. And Runes of Symbarium, I believe that's Free League who publishes that, which does excellent stuff, by the way. So Free League always has my dollar. But yeah, I mean, but if there's not a system for it, go out and find a generic RPG that you and your friends or you and your group are really comfortable with. And you know what? Do some work, port it over. It's actually fun doing the research and creating, creating that world in your game system. And, people are just lazy. They're like, oh, there's no game system. They don't publish that world for my D&D 5e, so I'm not going to buy it.
So basically, you're saying that when I go ahead and create this new game that I have an idea for, Iron Baristas, I shouldn't use 5e.
Actually, Iron Baristas would be the perfect 5e game.
Oh my God, yeah. First thing, do get consent. Second,
yeah. But no, I'm picturing like this world where basically coffee is this like fought over resource, and they actually have like mech pilots that jump. Huh?
Dune but coffee?
Yeah, I guess, except that the baristas are actually mech pilots, and they have to protect the coffee sources. So they go around, but the mechs also are like espresso machines. So they can actually create like mochas and stuff on the mech. So,
I was totally thinking more along the lines of like Iron Chef baristas, except that they use Mortal Kombat and lethal weapons.
I want to see more Keurigs. Can there be Keurigs in the mechs?
Yeah. Well,
that's a black book.
You'll get a +1 or +2 for having the Keurig in there.
Oh wow!
Excellent.
Well, no, maybe these are the corporations that actually build the mechs.
Oh man, I have totally derailed him. I did not mean to derail him.
No, we've got a whole the whole Keurig supplement line is its own little thing that's going to go on there.
So the mechs are built by Keurig, by Nespresso, by Mr. Coffee, so they're all the corporations that build the mechs. Yes,
I love this.
The more caffeine they have, the more power they're allowed to use in their mix.
Yeah, that's how.
But it's like Eva. It's like Eva, where they're like kind of like in this
triple
like
shot espresso
coffee
mech
soup. It's like all around them, and they're like floating in it and kind of like drinking it and breathing it and inhaling it as they're piloting their mech.
Oh God, like the what is that? The navigators from Dune. They're just in like these pots of coffee. The Java changes you. The Java makes you more.
So
I've created something terrible and wonderful.
You have.
Yeah, no, and if we see it anywhere else, we will point back to this episode.
I got to point out Greg in the comments that did Espresso Mancer.
Espresso Mancer. That's awesome.
That's one of the classes you can play. All right. So, wow.
I do want to say one thing.
Yeah.
No, it's related to the coffee at all, I swear. Okay. But with Dark Souls, going back to that, the RPG went through kind of a No Man's Sky kind of situation where, like, apparently when it released, it was awful. And, like, people hated it. And it was, like, not even because mechanics were bad, but it was just, like, so many spelling mistakes, grammar issues, rule issues, contradictions. And it was all just like a big mess. And now I'm reading it like, in the past couple days. And like it looks good. Like it's definitely like an interesting playable game with a very unique take on the Roll20 system. And I feel like the only reason why it's still a 5e system is because it uses things like advantage and disadvantage. And there's a little bit of the SRD in there with like the knight having a little bit of the fighter abilities in there.
Yeah, but you bring up a valid point, and that is that, and this is something that game companies and game designers really need to think about. Like when you're writing a supplement, when you're writing a game, don't just write it and go, I'm done, and send it to publish. You really have to just make sure you're playtesting. Make sure that, especially if it's like Dark Souls has a following, and if those followers look at it and go, "What the hell is this?" then you're on the wrong track. It's like we're gonna go to movies, but Sonic the Hedgehog, the movie, they actually stopped it, went back, refilmed a huge chunk of it because the fans basically said, "What are you doing?
You know, what are you doing, bro?"
Yeah. It's unfortunately not like Popeye the movie, which I still enjoy, and I know I'm dating myself here because I was in the 70s, I think.
No, it was early 80s, 81.
Was it early 80s?
Yeah,
but
81. I remember going to see it. I love that movie.
I do too, but it just, I don't know. There's something about it that it lost me as far as a Popeye movie would go. But it's a Popeye movie, so I guess not too. If they redid the movie now, it would probably be all CG and.
Oh yeah.
What.
That makes a valid point, but I will say that. Oh, excuse me. Mm-hmm. My gut's giving me issues. I will say that the RPG feels like it doesn't require party members so much. Like, I haven't tested like a solo run of it or anything like that, but it did kind of strike me as like a gut, please, I need you to stop. It struck me as like a thing of like, you could try to go it alone. Like, you could go GM and GMPC, and like you could have, for example, if this player is struggling a bit, instead of adjusting the difficulty, you could have a summon sign pop up, and it's an NPC that they can summon to help them out. And so then it's like two people helping out, and it's much like the original Dark Souls experience. Just find a summon sign lying around and be like, "Hey, I could use some help."
Yeah, and especially in a day and age where solo RPGs are kind of the hotness right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's because a lot of them actually just publish extra supplements to go, here's how you play it solo. And I think I pointed out last time that the One Ring has Strider mode that you can buy and play it. So no, and I agree. It's kind of hard to, like for example, they put out the Crow and Escape from New York as RPG supplements for Everyday Heroes. How do you play that with a group? Well, all right, maybe I can kind of see Escape from New York because you could be this team that goes into the. But how do you play the Crow with a group? Because then you run into that thing where it's like one person gets to play the Revenant and everyone else gets to play not the Revenant, and not do cool things and fall off.
Bob the Baker.
Yeah,
Steve the accountant.
So, I think that a lot of games, especially properties that are meant to be solo, are kind of hard to put together as a group. But anyway, we will wrap. Well, we won't wrap there. We'll just wrap up that topic right there, because last topic of the evening, we'll go over to Mike for some GM advice.
All right. So this actually seems a little out of place based off the way the conversation went. But so I've been on a lot of chats, and there is a lot of people who are new to Dungeons and Dragons, and they want to start running their own campaign or doing their own DMing. And they are going out to the group chats, and they're saying, how do I start? Where do I go? How do I become a DM? And so I just decided to quickly write down 10 suggestions on what you might want to do if you are interested in becoming a dungeon master or starting your own campaign and you're not sure where to go. So the first one is, of course, the easiest way to get around this would be to go to one of the already made adventures. There's lots of them out there. Many of them are very straightforward. James had mentioned earlier the Lost Mind of Pandelver. That one seems to be a go-to for first starting GMs and first starting players. It's a very well built adventure. There's also Ghosts of Saltmarsh, Waterdeep Dragon Heist. The list goes on, but you if you don't want to give your money to Wizards of the Coast, there's other people out there. There's other publishers you can go to that would also have some adventures you could use. Kobold Press has something called Prepared, which is a great starting adventure. Paizo has Crypt of the Everflame, again, another solid adventure to start with that would be great for both GM and players to get involved in. The next thing you'd want to do is assemble your players and have a conversation either through text or email or whatever medium you want. Try and figure out the characters that they're going to be playing. Try and see if you can establish some connections with each of the characters. Let's face it, You All Meet in a Tavern is just dead. Nobody likes it anymore. It's awkward. It's painful. So try and see if you can create some backstory that that'll help the players try and get an idea of why they are all together for whatever reason. The third one is you want to play to your audience. When you're creating a campaign, you want to create a campaign that's something that your players are going to want to be involved in. If you have this fantastical idea of some kind of campaign that takes place on the open waters and it's all about pirates, but all of your players want to ride horses, obviously that's not going to work. So maybe you want to shelf that idea and try and maybe tailor something that would be more of an interest to your players. Always play to your audience. Always play something that you know that they're going to want to be invested in. Likewise,
alternatively, water horses.
There you go, water horses. Also, there's a couple GMs out there that I noticed that we're going to start playing to a younger crowd, like the 10 and 12. Obviously, you want to try and curtail your adventure to the age range too. You want to try and keep it light, maybe not muddle the morality too much, and keep the adventure pretty simple and straightforward. Next, number 4 is campaign synopsis. You want to come up with a story arc. I like to say a play. In 3 acts, usually a beginning, a middle, and an end. You want to make sure that in the beginning you kind of establish what's happening. You paint the scene. In the middle, you usually try and build tension, or you build complications, or something happens and the conflict intensifies. And then, of course, the end is the final resolution. And you want to create a solid plot hook. You want to keep it simple, especially your first time around. Don't go with a crazy complex plot. Try and just keep it very, who's stealing out of the wagons, or why is there strange lights in the graveyard? You don't want to go with a overly complex storyline, especially for you or your players. You want to make it pretty simple. And of course, tailor the adventure to your players' strengths and maybe even their weaknesses. You want to make sure that each player has an opportunity to shine, maybe show off some of the skills that they have, and maybe put them in a couple situations where they might have to think outside of the box, find out what they need to do to get the problem solved. And always keep your pocket of breadcrumbs handy. And when I mean breadcrumbs, that's in air quotes. Players have the unusual ability to, well, not so unusual, but they have the knack of following the wrong clue, or chasing a red herring, or suddenly becoming fascinated with an NPC that has absolutely nothing to do with the plot. So eventually, at some point, you might have to gently guide them back onto the plot. And breadcrumbs is usually a way of doing it, either through items or NPCs or other ways you can try and see if you can course correct the players back onto the plot itself. And then, of course, at the end, you always should have at least some kind of big climactic finish. There should be a big reveal, hopefully, of the person behind all of the mysterious disappearances or whatever, the big bad evil guy or girl, as he's known. And you should try and have some kind of climactic ending, maybe on the top of a waterfall or in a pit of lava, something that makes it truly exciting and memorable for your players. And last but not least, if you really want to do something yourself, but you can't come up with any ideas, my recommendation is steal somebody else's. That's right. Plagiarism is fine as long as you give credit where credit is due. There is a lot of material out there. Hollywood's been doing it for years. Go ahead and grab your favorite movie, switch around some of the players, switch around some of the concepts, and you could have an adventure that your players will probably talk about for a while. Avengers Endgame, Thanos is a necromancer. He's chasing some kind of artifact that's going to change the world. All the Avengers are the good heroes who all belong to an organization, maybe the Harpers or something like that. And now you have a campaign in a couple seconds that you can throw together, and hopefully the players won't be able to see through it and see it for what it is. At any rate, those are my 10 tips for any aspiring GMs out there, and anyone watching. Best of luck to you.
You know, Mike, I think that the Necromancer might be actually Age of Ultron might be a better fit for that particular plot.
Ooh, yeah.
There you go.
But yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of valid points there. I mean, especially like when you bring up about gaming with kids, because you know, us old war veterans in gaming like a lot of nuance and deep stuff. But I mean, not to say that kids can't handle nuance, but they kind of want to jump into the fun. You know, let them kind of, you know, do what they need to do, and then start slowly introducing that nuance, you know, as you go along. But I wanted to bring up a couple of comments here. So Greg mentions Chaosium has great starter sets, and they do. You know, I know I was bitching about Chaosium a little earlier about, you know, how they're kind of going a little the way of, you know, have consent with horror and, you know, tell your players that there's going to be horror and whatever. But the Call of Cthulhu starter set, the Pendragon starter set, and the RuneQuest starter set are amazing. They're like less than $30, and they come with enough material to basically run a great campaign for a year. I mean, they're amazing. So definitely worth it. Beautiful quality, full color, multiple things, huge maps, completely worth it. And something that Crafty Matt mentioned that I want to just also, where he says, let the players drive the narrative and just be surprised as your players. And I think that's fair. When a game master says, hey, I'm going to run this adventure, that's the novel that I'm writing, and it's going to be a railroad because I want them to do these exact things. And then when the players don't, the GM gets upset. That's, you know, you really have to, honestly, one of my favorite types of games to do is heists. And the reason why is that I give them the objective. All right, you guys got to break into XYZ, and here's all the things you need. Here, ask me any question you want about what's going on, and then go. And watch them just come up with the craziest schemes, or the way in, or how they're going to pretend to be, the three halflings in a trench coat trying to get into the door or whatever. And I like that because I have no idea what's going to happen. I know what's in there, and I know what the players might run into. But in a heist scenario, you are not, there is no railroad. It is like, here is the stuff, you figure it out. I've had people drive through the building in a car, try to climb up elevator shafts, try to pretend that they're foreign dignitaries. I mean, it's amazing, and it's fun, and it really keeps me as a game master on my feet, because I have to then start matching pace with what they're coming up with. But I can't stand it when the game master just basically says, all right, we're going on that railroad. Let me just put your car right here. We're just going to drive straight through Narrativeville and end up at, the big bad. So, and I understand, like, con games, you have to do that, because otherwise they just won't end. But for a home game, there's no reason why you should be, railroading. But anyway, so that's my comment on it. Anyone else has any comments on Mike's GM tips?
So I have two things.
Okay.
So I've always wanted to be a mom, and as such, I have researched various books and whatever for that are helpful for kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I found two that really stood out to me, and it was Little Heroes: A Guide to Children at the Table by Anne Gregerson. It's GM's Guild or D&D Guild, whichever it is.
Okay.
But it's not just for 5e, it's for games in general. but it's like kind of has that 5e backdrop to it.
Uh-huh.
And then another one for like younger kids, like maybe between like 5 and 10-ish, is an official 5e coloring book mixed with a character creator and an adventure. And it's called Adventure with Muck. And you play a little goblin and you get to color him, and he has a little friend, and it like describes goblins and gives them lore, and it's like it does take a bit of a different spin with goblins because I mean they want to be a little bit more child friendly, but these goblins are actually kind of cute, and like I'd love to have one in like my own games, even though it's like based off of a coloring book, and they'll be like, "Gwen, why are you making us read a coloring book?" And it's like, shh, ignore that, just get the thing, I swear. And yeah, it's actually a lot of fun. Like you can, it's not all goblin related. Like there is like one part that asks you to like draw beards for dwarves.
That sounds awesome, actually.
Yeah, it's a really cute coloring book, and I highly recommend it. And it's compatible with 5e. It gives a lot of like good little tips and stuff. And yeah, and I mean it's a coloring book, and even as an adult, I love coloring. So.
But see, right there, I think that's awesome because it's a creative way to introduce someone to the hobby in a sense where it's not a game master dictating rules, where it's kind of like, here's this coloring book, and this coloring book is not only going to give you an iconic character to go through the information with, but you get to color them, you get to draw beards, you get to do all this other stuff while learning. That kind of reminds me of the original Marvel superheroes from TSR, because in one of the earlier basic sets, Ben Grimm and Spider-Man basically teach you the rules. And it's done in their narrative, which is really fun because, you know, Ben Grimm is, talking all rough and blah, blah, blah about combat, and Spider-Man's telling you all the subtleties of the rules. And it makes it fun to read because as all of us as RPG players and gamers and game masters, sometimes reading rules suck. It's like, my God, this is the most this is a college textbook. What the
What are you talking about? You're going to make weak gamers. You need to hand them a ton of spreadsheets and go, boom.
Become an adult now.
Enjoy this.
You're going to stunt their math skills. I read something where a guy was talking about teaching kids to play and running games for kids, and he had the amusing comment that he said the groups that he ran were roughly evenly split between ones that wanted to befriend the monsters and ones that were committed to committing war crimes.
Yep, that sounds about right.
All right, so I think we are at time. We're a little bit over.
Are we done yet, though? Are we really done? Have you forgotten something? Could it be a Kickstarter that you've forgotten?
Oh, I thought you said you weren't doing a Kickstarter.
I wasn't going to be here, but I said I would. I sent you the stuff, but you can ignore it. I have books in my hands. Okay. I can show them off without you.
All right.
It is inevitable.
The Griffin's Saddlebag. 500 different magic items for 5e. And the art in this is pretty good. It's cool stuff in there as far as art-wise. And it's a whole big selection of random, maybe not random, it's a wide selection of items that go from the weak stuff all the way up to legendary items, and even has some for like rangers and wizards, and groups them together of things that could be working for that particular set of people. And I love magic items. And I saw that one, and I even bought their first book, which was their first book of magic items. So I've got them both. And the Kickstarter came with the option to go ahead and use their online, to pay a little bit and use their online database of these magic items where you could insert search terms, and it would just spit out every magic item that met the criteria of what you wanted to do. And then you could just go ahead and use it.
Oh, wow.
I thought that was a great idea.
That is a great idea, because even with books, you'll see something and kind of think about it in your head, and then you'll never find it. again.
Yeah.
When you're looking through the books, you go, oh, what book is that in?
You can search in there and say, rubies, staffs, something like that, fighters, whatever, and it just gives you the database entries for all of these various items. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's useful.
That is incredibly useful. I wish other companies would actually do that. I mean, so Wizards of the Coast does it with D&D Beyond, but other
D&D Beyond.
Yeah, but other companies can do that. I actually just received some books. A friend of mine, his friend was getting rid of a bunch of books and said, well, here's some stuff. Do you want any of it? And I managed to snag Earth Dawn 3rd edition, like the Player's Guide, the GM's Guide, and the GM's Companion book. And it was really neat because Earth Dawn is an amazing RPG. But it's like also one of those RPGs that no one ever plays but talks about. It's an amazing game, but no one ever played it. So
kind of like Wraith the Oblivion.
Oh my God, yeah! That has to be we will actually save that for next show because I think we could go on a rant about early White Wolf. It was good stuff, but yeah, there was some games like Promethean. It's like, who the hell played Promethean?
Let's plan for that for next week because I can definitely go toe to toe with you on that one because they were fantastic readers, but I have never once seen someone play it.
All right, so there you go. Next week,
I tossed a link in there for the ledger in the private chat. You can see a limited selection of the magic items, even if you've never purchased it before, so you can get an idea of whether purchasing a little thing to use it with all of their magic items is something that would float your boat.
Oh yeah, I'm actually just going to share this really quick on screen just to kind of show it because this is kind of neat. So you can all the stuff is there and it's oh wow cool. It even has the rating,
the rarity, yeah.
Yep. That is really useful. And I guess
if you look at the top, there's a search, and when you click on it, you get the card. But look at the top of the screen.
Oh wow!
Once you leave that page, click off of that so you get back to the main page. See where it says "Start typing here to search." You can type in any search thing and see what you pop up.
All right. I'm just gonna put ring of. Oh neat. And hag. Okay. Ring up. I was trying to, when I click away from this though, then it actually closes it out. But yeah, that's neat. So it should Ring of Soul Harvest. Let's see what that does. Ooh, I'd wear Ring of Soul Harvest.
But
no,
Vancouver.
But that is actually very cool. So yeah, no, that database came with the Kickstarter as well.
I had to pay a little bit extra to go ahead and get access to it. I think for the 2 books I paid I want to say I paid $15 or $20 for each book to get all 1,300 items or whatever, however many in there. And I think it was worthwhile. I wanted to see what it looked like, and I was pleased with it.
Yeah, well, that's the important thing. I mean, I've bought Kickstarters where I just regret going, this is what the hell am I even going to do with this book? I was trying to pawn some off on Mike recently because I got this one 5e set that was flying ships or something like that. And I was going, oh, this kind of, I don't know. I don't think I'm ever going to use this. And then Mike was running
Would it look something like this?
Yes. Mike was running a oh my God, Spelljammer game. It still is. And but of course Wizards of the Coast didn't give you any rules for how to do ships. So I was like, hey, maybe you might be able to use it. It's like I'd like to get some use out of a book that I spent $50 on.
Yeah.
But
they're not just trophies on your shelf. What?
Exactly.
Well, they're trophies in the guest bedroom at this point. Like I said, the 5e room. All right. So with that said, let us close for the night. So anyway, thank you everyone. So we had Crafty Matt join us. If you don't follow him on Twitter, definitely you should check out. He's actually one of the common sense Twitter or X people. Dana joined us again, Greg, and we even had, I'm just scrolling up here for names. There was someone else I just want to call out, Monkey Man, who thank you for joining us earlier. And
I saw a post from Rachel also.
Oh, yep, and Rachel. Sorry, and Rachel's gonna punch me. Yeah, sorry. And Rachel. Actually, Dana and Rachel are, and Greg are basically our groupies in a sense, because they're at least always here. I don't know if they want to be called groupies, but
okay, you heard that.
This is an RPG content. They're not the groupies; they're the NPCs.
I don't know if you want to be called that nowadays either.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, I'm JC, Grindhouse Media. We do Welcome to the Grindhouse and a couple of other things, Chapter 13 Press Publishing. And you can find me over at Grindhouse Media on Twitter. If you want to call up and call me pathetic and tell me to get off my cross, okay, that's what it seems it was.
That would make a great name for a live stream. Get off my cross.
Ooh, all right. Consider it stolen, or at least consider it being thought about. And I'm just going to go around if people want to say stuff. So, Mike.
Hello.
All right. Awesome. Gwen.
Good night.
Terry.
I'm an author. Find me on Amazon.
There you go. And Bryce.
I don't have anything, but now I almost want to register Get Off My Cross and tableflip.com,
I'm pretty sure tableflip.com is off the charts, gone.
All right. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead over to here and bring up our farewell. Thank you. And as you know, we have moved to Mondays for the time being. So we will see you next Monday with, I think, a World of Darkness themed show. So anyway, everyone,
fun day.
good night.